I think we're live. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? We're going to kick off in a second. So if you want to just maybe in the comments write where you're listening from, country, location, city, whatever you like. If you could just, share your location. So where you're dialing in from, guys. Okay, I think we'll get started then. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live, which focuses on how to best drive business transformation through learning technology. Going to start with some intros first, and I'll just go around the room here. So, Pete, I don't know if you want to do your intro first.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Pete Harris. I'm the Learning and Development Partner for The Work Stores, which is a book and stationery retailer, and I'm based in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Super, thanks, Pete. Helen?
Oh yeah, so I am a digital learning manager. I work for Fisher-Wack Health, which is a medcoms company, and I'm based in the UK.
Perfect. And then finally the other Ashley.
Two of us. Hi guys, I'm Ashley Murray. I'm Head of Workforce Development at Middlesbrough College. So we're a further education college based in the northeast of England.
Perfect, thank you. And then just myself, so my name's Ashley. I am Head of Implementation here at Thrive. And for those tuning in that might not know much about Thrive, Thrive is a complete learning and skills platform built to replace traditional LMSs for modern businesses, bringing together learning, comms, content, and skills all into one seamless experience. My role at Thrive is to support and manage our implementation specialists, but also work with our customers to implement the platform. So right from the signature up until go live is where my role plays its part. During our implementation process, we run a series of workshops to set customers up for success and to really make sure that when they embed the platform into the business, it lands from day one. So I'm going to move on now to what we're going to be covering in today's session. You might have read the brief at the start, but kind of hopefully delve into a bunch of and answer a bunch of key questions around how to best embed learning technology into the business, and for the guys on the stream today to share those experiences of what they've been through as well. We'll talk about aligning your objectives with the rest of the business, from coordinating other departments, identifying kind of user experiences, and considerations when deciding what platform is right for you. I'm sure the guys will also share their experience on getting the support and commitment from those stakeholders and how they handle different change management as well. And then we'll also delve a little bit into the importance of harnessing the right data and navigating any migration challenges, really. So I've got a few questions that we're going to go through. The first one is around kind of approaching the new platform in line with your business goals. So, I often get asked to share best practices on how to ensure implementation is successful. And my number one is always to think of it as a business transformation project, not just a technology implementation. It is so much more than that. It's about reinforcing modern approaches to learning and development in your organization. And some of our most successful customers completely overhauled their approach to L&D, not just by providing the right content that's fit for modern learners, but by putting the organization objectives first. So again, it leads me on to my first question. I guess, Ashley, maybe I'll come to you for this one. How did you approach kind of the project for a new platform and align it to the business goals within Middlesbrough College?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. So you mentioned there about sort of the importance of business transformation and bringing in a new platform as such. And really, I adopted quite a similar approach, as in this is essentially a change management piece. We're moving from one state or one platform to another, and we're looking at how we can influence the, should we say, the culture that we have within the organisation. And that could be within sort of the organisational culture, but equally within the learning culture that we have within our businesses. So quite often I'll start with that traditional like gap analysis type of approach with where are we now? Where is it that we want to be in line with those business goals and that blue sky concept, which quite often we're the orchestrators of in our roles across the table here, but equally with the individuals that are joining us online today. And look at essentially how is it that we get from A to B? And in getting from A to B, how do we influence and perhaps sometimes dictate the goals around us? Because I think quite often we'll find that senior stakeholders will have this blue sky concept of what it is that they would like to introduce. And it's within our remit to show them what the art of the possible is and how do we get the best value, the best impact across our organisations through the tools that we have available to us.
Good. Anything else to add there, Pete, maybe?
Yeah, I guess for us, very similar to Ashley, but we were launching the platform as part of a wider business change, so a new business strategy, a slightly new direction for the business. And we knew there was going to be a lot of learning and a lot of change as part of that. So we sort of launched the smaller change project of the platform in order to support the wider strategy change of the business. And we just didn't have another method of doing that prior to launching Thrive. So we very much used it as part of the change process.
Okay, nice. That's good to know. And Helen, anything else to add there?
Oh, I think they covered it, most of it. I'm just going to say from our point of view, we know that we had like our employees from our temperature check survey saying that they wanted more engagement. We had lots of different platforms. So from a change management point of view, it was like, how can we make their experience better? So that's why we went for Thrive in the end.
Nice. I guess for me, it's once you get to those goals and you identify them, you can almost work backwards towards those learning experiences as well. So, what do you want to achieve and what content, what experiences do we need to create to meet those goals, really? So hopefully it all links nicely in together. Cool. And obviously, if you've got any questions on the stream, in the chat, put them in the chat. We can either pick them up at the end and make sure, if you have any specific questions for anyone on the stream today, then we'll get to those. So I guess moving on to my next question. So when you decided you wanted a new platform, kind of what did that research phase look like? How did you compare and benchmark different providers? Because of course there's a lot out there. And then eventually, why Thrive? And I don't know, Helen, if you want to go first for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually my second implementation of Thrive. So at my previous company, we implemented Thrive, and I already knew it was a great platform. So with Fisherwork, I knew that we needed to do some great research on different platforms, but I already knew what the art of the possible was. So what we did was we created a spreadsheet which had what we currently do, what our platform currently did. So everything that we liked about our current platform, every sort of thing that we wanted to do for the future. So how did it help support our employee engagement? How did it support self-directed learning? How did it support user-generated content? All of those were the future thinking parts that we wanted to include. And then what we did is we then listed them in priority. So with the high, low or medium priority. So when we were looking at different platforms, we were looking at the same requirements for each platform, and then we were grading them. So everyone had the same spreadsheet. Everyone could grade them however they wanted in regards to the answers that they sought. And then we'd come together and be like, right, okay, this platform scored this much. Like, do we want to have another deeper dive into it? Do we not? Like, how is it scored against it? So it's not just a case of that platform, that presentation really wowed us. We loved it. It was actually more of a deep dive to functionality as well. So we ended up going with Thrive because it just did everything we needed to do. It had the whole employee engagement, the comms piece of it. It had the really great learning side of it in regards to mandatory training and events, but it also had that user generated content, which is such a massive thing for us. But it also didn't lock it down to just one type of user content. So if for whatever reason you needed to migrate anything else, you can take that content and use that elsewhere. So it wasn't just locked down to one type of content.
Cool. And you touched on the user generated content part there. Do you, across your user base, do you see your end users sharing their knowledge and best practices official.
We're getting there. We're not quite as where we want to be, but we have got some leaders in regards to it. So some of our divisional leaders are getting on board with the content and seeing that. So now it's a case of just like slowing down, showing them what the art of the possible is, and sort of like encouraging them to do that sort of SME content. So we're doing a bit of a skill deep dive in the new year. So we're hoping that will encourage people to sort of add their own content because they're the skill SMEs.
Nice, sounds good. Pete, what about your research? And you kind of touched on it about why, but
yeah, I mean, very similar. So we set out with, we've got a 4-year strategy in place, just launched this year. So we set out with sort of the aim of where do we need to be in 4 years' time, and what features are essential, what are nice to haves, and there was a surprising number of platforms out on the market that had all the nice to haves but not all of the essentials. So we went through quite a long process. We long listed about 20 providers and then whittled that down to 5 in the end, and finally decided on Thrive because it genuinely met all of the need to have functionalities we needed and some of the nice to haves as well. User-generated content isn't something we're looking at just yet because of the nature of our business, but it is something that we'd like to get to in the next sort of 18 to 24 months. So having that sort of future-proof platform was a really important factor for us.
Yeah, I guess you can decide when you turn that on, right? It's in your control when you're ready to
Absolutely.
make that switch and encourage that behavior.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. And then finally, Ashley, I know this again. You've implemented how many times now?
This is my 3rd implementation of Thrive. Yeah, big disclaimer, should flash at the bottom for Helen and myself. So an interesting one for myself because I actually joined the college just as we were about to sign the contract for, should we say, a more traditional provider. And I think it would have been remiss of me at the time not to have introduced, again, that blue sky concept, the art of the possible. And having spent time with our senior stakeholders, talking about the business objectives and where we saw ourselves as part of a significant digital transformation journey that we're on at the moment, immediately I knew that I had to throw Thrive into the mix there, moving away, like I said, from probably the more traditional LMS, which has some fantastic functionality, but moving, again, we're an education provider. Learning is what we do for our students, and equally it's something that we rally the cause of across our staff population. And to find a platform that could reach not just our academics, but our Joe bloggers, who in past haven't been engaged in learning for whatever reason. They didn't see themselves part of the bigger picture, just by bringing in some of the functionality. And we haven't turned everything on Thrive as of yet. Similar user-generated content is something that we're holding on to a little bit. We've got pockets, but we haven't opened the floodgates just yet. But we're starting to see the engagement, to see the traction, etc., within the Thrive platform already. And as I said, for me, it would have been remiss of me not to have thrown Thrive into that procurement process. Again, very heavy, very robust. Wasn't made on one person's decision, but it's my team's job to showcase what's out there in the marketplace at the moment, and Thrive being one of those leaders.
Nice. Okay. And I guess kind of leads us on to nicely to our next question. I'll probably stay with you, Ashley, for this one. But obviously, you came into the college during that process of them going through a tender and almost picking a provider.
Yeah.
I guess kind of getting that stakeholder buy-in obviously must have been important to get done quickly. And obviously there are probably challenges in that too. So maybe let's stay with your experience in getting stakeholder buy-in for now, and then we'll go around the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of my first week, sticking my head above the parapet and advising our senior leadership team not to sign a contract just yet, because I had something else that I wanted to show them. You never know how that's going to be taken, do you? Luckily, 12 months down the line, I'm still here. We've got a platform. It's doing some fantastic things in situ, and it's proving its value. But yeah, critical stakeholder buy-in, and that's not just at the top with the seniors, but that's at every level. Of course, you've got your drivers for change, your change agents that sit within the masses, those influencers that we know that we need to bring on the journey with us. one person alone saying how fantastic a platform might be or the value that we're going to get out of it doesn't have the same weight behind it as having several of them. So one of the things that we did very early in the process was identifying actually who our influencers were within the organisation and start to feed our campaign. I call it like the drive for urgency and the drive for change. People don't know what's out there until their eyes have been sort of made open to it. And if we always do what we've always done, we're not going to get ourselves any further as an organisation. So those individuals were critical to me. We identified them very early within the process. We brought them through the implementation process. They were part of the procurement process. They were part of the marketing, and then now they're part of the population that are driving Thrive into the college. So absolutely critical for us.
Nice. So you found getting people involved really early, identifying those influencers allows both for a successful implementation, but for the longevity of people using the platform as well.
They feel as though they're part of they're part of the journey, they're part of the change. Change isn't imposed on them, and said that they're out there, they're our influencers among the masses.
Nice, that's good. Helen, any?
Yeah, I would say that we probably could have improved in regards to our stakeholder buy-in. So we had the C-suite buy-in and we had the top management, but actually we're quite a divisional focused company. So we could have gone a bit more deeper in regards to the divisions and got that a little bit more buy-in from them just to sort of make it land a bit better. Definitely something we learned post-launch. So we're still engaging with those key stakeholders and trying to sort of work a bit backwards instead of getting those sections and their content presented exactly how they want it. So definitely don't forget key stakeholders, and also anyone that works in divisions or anything like that, don't overlook those because they are key stakeholders.
Yeah, I guess if you've got a more complex company structure where you do have entities or divisions, it's important to, like I say, let them know of the benefits that they will get from it as well, isn't it? I think that's key.
Yeah, I think we just didn't sort of bring them in early enough. Like Ashley said, they got them in part of the process where we got them we'd already decided on Thrive, we'd already signed the contract, we're this is what we're doing kind of thing, here's the journey that we've gone on, and they were on board with the journey, but actually making them part of that decision making would have been a key element, and that would have got them on board straight away.
Yeah, okay, a good lesson learned then for everyone watching, for sure. And then Pete, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add around this question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we did similar to Ashley. We managed to pull together a few focus groups before we signed the contract and before we sort of went in with Thrive, made sure that we had sort of representations from different parts of the business, different areas, our support center, our distribution center, our retail arm, that they could then go and talk to their colleagues about it as well and say, look, this is what's coming, and talk through what they really wanted to get out of the platform and what, I guess it's where you have to draw the line between the art of the possible and what people are actually going to do with the platform. And it's great that you can have user-generated content and everything else, but if no one's going to use it, no point having that there as a feature. So it's sort of understanding what they wanted to use it for, and then make sure that we built it in that way and launched the different features in a reasonable order that worked for the business.
Sounds good. Yeah, definitely. Again, it goes on to my next question about the handling the change management of the platform and kind of engaging with that broader user base. So we talked about getting stakeholders and influencers involved, but when we think about I guess launching it and the change management part of it, it's another key part of that process. So Helen, I don't know if you want to kind of share your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched Thrive as one of the third platforms we launched that year. So we in 6 weeks we launched 3 platforms. So what we call Thrive Connect. So we launched that as the last platform that year. So we'd already got some really great user groups involved. So they could do UAT testing for us. We gave them examples of go find this piece of content, not how to find it, but this is a piece of content. Where would you find it? Is it all in logical places? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? So we had already great user groups already embedded in regards to the company. We also have CX people. So we had our own CX department come and have a look at it. How can we improve it? How can we get that better? So from a user point, from that user experience, we had sort of conversations with people of different levels, different divisions, just to get their opinions on it, because we wanted the whole company to be using it. It wasn't just a certain type of feedback we wanted. We welcomed any sort of criticism, not just, we don't want to just hear positive comment. We were like, how can we make it, how can we improve it for you? And we were very clear that this is just phase one. So launch for us was just phase one. It'll be a continued involvement over time about how we can just still keep refining it and making it work better for them.
Okay. Sounds good. And obviously we just brought up some slides about this is your explore page. So in the first 2 weeks, you had 6,000 content views and 70% of your population had logged in, which is really, really good stats there.
Oh, perfect. We launched with, I was just going to say, we launched with like a webinar as well. So the company already had pre-invites to this to say, look, come and join us, come and watch this webinar to give us a bit of a whirlwind tour of Connect. So I think that really helped get the rest of the buy-in, sort of the company buy-in on board.
And did you get good adoption for that webinar then?
Yes, yeah. I think we got over 1,000 in regards to that. So that's good for us. So we were really happy with that.
Nice, sounds good. And I guess, Pete, when we talk about the handling the change management and engaging with your employees, I guess you've got employees that are retail based, completely store, maybe without a laptop or
so we were really heavily reliant on people probably using their own devices for an awful lot of our engagement. And we've got 4,000 colleagues in the business, from people who work 4 hours on a Sunday all the way through to full timers and a support center. So trying to engage that range of people with the platform was a real challenge. So again, it was just looking for a key demographic that was going to be an influencer. We looked at our area managers because they're the ones that are most in touch. And yes, the board and the heads of retail have bigger teams, but it's the area managers who are out in stores talking to people. So we spent a lot of time working with that area manager population of about 30 people to really get them on board with it, gave them early access prior to launch, showed them some of the content, made sure they could access it and see some example reports so that they could go out and engage people as well. And we also worked really closely with the Thrive team on things like teaser videos and campaigns before we launched, so that we could sort of get the message out using Facebook, LinkedIn, and various different internal channels that we could use to just shout about it for as long as we could, as loud as we could, to make sure people were there and ready. And we had a really good response when we did launch.
Nice. And so you talk about the different channels there. Like you say, is there like Facebook groups, like you say, is that something you that will stay or will Thrive?
The plan initially was that Thrive and our reward and benefits platform would replace the Facebook group. But yeah, we might be tearing it from their cold dead hands. The colleagues love it and want to keep using it. So we're trying to put less and less on it, but they're holding on to it for dear life at the moment. Yeah,
fair enough. And then it's just about knowing, right, what's used for what. And again, we've got a question in a bit about ecosystems and stuff. So maybe we'll come back to how Thrive or a platform can fit into the wider ecosystem. And I guess, finally, Ashley, your change management piece and engaging with that broader user base before launch.
Yeah, so pre-launch, I think I already touched on sort of identifying who we believed our key influencers were going to be. Individuals brought together as part of a digital transformation group, where individuals had input into the look, the feel, the functionality, what we were going to turn on immediately at launch, and things that we were perhaps going to hold back. And have more of a controlled stage launch of additional functionality in there. The Thrive team were absolutely fantastic in supporting and guiding us and creating little bits and pieces here and there where we just didn't have the bandwidth or the capacity to be able to do so. So the likes of the teaser videos, hats off to the team. They did a brilliant job there for us. Sort of, like I said, just light, short, snappy bits of content that could entice individuals, sort of get people excited. We actually, to begin with, we didn't go out with a big bang. We just started to talk about Thrive when we were out and about, and found that people were talking about Thrive. And well, how do you know? Because you're not part of that particular transformation group, etc. But it generated a buzz and it generated an interest before we went big bang with it at our annual conference and announced what was coming, when it was coming, gave them a really snazzy 60-second video with just some highlights. And then I said, after that, I've never had as many people, I think, knocking on our office door.
I guess you touched on the launch assets then whether that's like a teaser trailer a few weeks or months before, or whether it's a full-blown, 1 minute kind of video around the platform. Did you find they were really affected then, like kind of leaning into a bit of a marketing approach in using assets and promotion and kind of making people excited potentially about what's coming?
Yeah, in the college, absolutely. This was a platform that we hadn't seen the likes of before. Again, we're an academic organisation. The learning platforms that we've historically used are academic. They're quite, I dare say, dated. Hopefully nobody from any other organisations is watching. But they feel a little bit stagnant and a bit dated and much the same. Whereas the whole look and feel of Thrive was completely different for them. It was very clean, very user friendly, and very intuitive, which is actually what we want, what we needed within the college. So just by giving that 60-second video highlight of the look, the feel, a little bit of navigation, really did spark a fire underneath our individuals. We had 3 months from the teaser campaign until we actually went live. So it gave us that opportunity to identify more influencers within the population, individuals that had taken an interest and wanted to be part of the transformation group that we hadn't identified earlier.
Nice. Okay, sounds good. And then I know we've kind of slightly gone off topic a little bit, but Helen, Pete, anything else that you want to share about your launch approach and things you did, assets, anything like that, which you thought worked really well?
Yeah, so we were sunsetting our old LMS at the same time. So we sunsetted our old LMS and launched Thrive. So we gave them, I think, about 2 months notice saying, look, we're going to be sunsetting the old one, giving them plenty of communication regards to this one's going, this is what's going to be happening, because obviously it's change and people are like, oh, I'm attached to that platform, I don't want to lose it. But there were so many positives to why we were moving. That's why we chose Thrive. So just giving them the heads up, this is what we're doing. This one's going to be sunsetting. This is all the benefits we're getting with Thrive. We had tone from the top. So we got like comms out from our CEO saying like, this is going to be a great change for us. We did teaser videos as well. So yeah, I think just that like drip feeding of this change coming through to sort of like soften the excitement of the new one. So that no one suddenly is like, oh my goodness, where's my old platform gone? They're all sort of anticipating the new one.
Nice. Yeah, there's some good tips there. I think if you can get the message from senior stakeholders and it be a consistent message for different times, I think it does help that change process.
I would say that no matter how well you do that process, you will find that one user who emails you the day after you switch the old platform off saying, why can't I get onto my old platform? They're out there, and that will happen. But
yeah, and I think you think about the time of launch as well. Thinking about when's the best time to launch. Ashley, I know that you launched in the summer holidays, didn't you? So all the teachers were on summer holidays.
We'd originally planned to launch slightly earlier, but because we had so much digital going on within the college, we tied the launch with our new intranet sites. We chose for business purposes not to put it on Thrive. We'll see where it goes in the future. But that's it with our digital team at the moment. It ended up being launched on the day that 50% of our population, all of our academic staff, went on holiday. So we launched Friday noon, and by Friday 2 o'clock, they were all packing their bags and going off on an aeroplane. So yeah, so when you look at our engagement stats, we had fantastic numbers in terms of the number of views, but the engagement appears to be slightly skewed, and that's purely because our lucky teachers, lecturers, etc., were off on their summer holidays. So definitely one to be mindful of. I'd like to think that if we had everybody in, we would have had 16,000 views rather than the 8,000 views. But
it's one of those considerations, though. Sometimes you can be choosy when you launch a new platform and pick the right day. Other times it's maybe taking out your hands, sunsetting other systems. So, but it's definitely something to be mindful of, like what day, what time, what else is going on in the business. Are there other platforms being launched? Like that's where it's good to be connected to other departments to know what's going on. Perfect. I guess let's talk about data a little bit then. So obviously that's a big part of any platform implementation. understanding, what the process is for getting the right data, and then being able to use that data to create those different experiences, whether that's what users have access to, what users have been assigned. So yeah, it'd be good to know a bit more about how you guys went about that. I guess, Peter, I don't know if you want to go first with your experience. Again, I work
Yeah.
with this, so I've got the background, but it'd be good to share, the challenges and the successes that you had when you had to think about using
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I think for us, we had historically used a platform which was entirely about compliance learning and fairly old-fashioned compliance learning, if we're bluntly honest. So it was really for us about understanding, what could Thrive do, what did users actually want, and what was the daily work pattern of most of our users. So we spent quite a lot of time in store working with our managers, with our area managers around what a new starter journey looks like, what the realistic sort of time is that they get to learn, and how it would work best for them. And we went down the route of microlearning in the end, of lots and lots of little 3-minute courses which they can pick up on when there's a lull in customers, or when they've got a 15-minute break and they can do a short piece of learning. And then we did the same thing with our support center and our distribution center, but we went the other way with those guys because they tend to get larger blocks of time and chunks of time. So they wanted a pathway that they could work their way through in one lunch break rather than splitting it across 2 or 3 days. So it was really about understanding how people are going to use the system, and then making sure the learning fit that, rather than making them change their routines to fit the learning that we were asking them to do.
Yeah. So that research piece is key. And then
obviously
being able to identify the roles, the responsibilities, who should do what as well, right?
And we had a lot of our content in some format or another, but a lot of it was quite PDF document heavy, or printed booklets and what have you. So really it was about understanding the best way for people to take in that information and learn it, and for us to be able to certify that they've completed it, which is where Thrive came in absolutely perfectly.
Nice. Okay. Ashley, again, another question to you about the user data. Again, I work with you on your project too. So again, I have the background of what we went through to get the right data for you to be able to create the experiences, but challenges.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say to anybody that's looking at going through any implementation such as this is, don't underestimate the importance of this stage at all. No matter how well you think you know the data, rest assured you will get caught out with the data at some point. And for us, sometimes it felt a little bit like square peg round hole, in that we're extremely data rich within the college. Sometimes you wonder, what do we do with it all? Do we do anything with it? So for us, identifying, as said, the data that we wanted to retain, the rich data that added value to us, and the data that actually we could park for now, that could be archived and stored, that we didn't want any longer. And having that in a uniform manner, so that we could, do I dare say, use the word shift from one entity to another entity. The Thrive team made that so much easier for us, hand-holding throughout that. But for us, just getting the data from one platform, 2 platforms, 3 platforms into a unified template was challenging enough. Or even identifying where you have gaps within the data that hadn't been identified previously, and looking to fill those gaps. Or where data had been, I dare say, I call it dirty data. It's data, but you know that it doesn't look and it doesn't feel correct for some reason. Actually, you're smiling there. I think, can you recall the wonderful challenges that we had with our data sets, because they kept flipping in from UK format to US format anytime they went into the cloud. And I think we sent our data sets backwards and forwards, goodness knows how many times, by so many different means, simply because at source it had been input in one format and we needed it out in a totally different format, but the 2 platforms that we were using couldn't extract the data in the format that we needed it to. So we had a lot of challenges with data. Let's just leave it at that.
I guess really the lesson learned then really is you will rely on other people like IT technical teams to be able to give you that. And actually, what you might find while doing this process is it's not always correct. You know, the person's role, the person's history, you think it's always been correct, but actually when you start stripping it out and start using the data to build audiences, to create experiences, to build reports, that's when at that point you figure it out. So it's quite often that you kind of have to go through one of these projects and start using the use data in your business to then start identifying, there's a gap in that process when someone joins, or there's a gap in this process. So I guess going through implementation enables you to find those gaps, and not just for this project but for future projects as well, right? The user data is not just used for this platform.
Yeah, absolutely. We're using the data now and the data sets that we cleaned, I'll say, or that we reformatted as part of the Thrive implementation for a raft of other projects now within the organisation. So it absolutely has not been a wasted effort. The time has been very well spent. But without doing the implementation through Thrive, we probably wouldn't have identified sort of some of the issues that we were having until another project came on the table that needed us to review the data sets, that needed the data exporting for it to be imported, for it to be worked, etc. So it's I'm not going to say it wasn't hair-pulling challenging, and if anything, my Excel skills have absolutely sort of been nailed over the past few months. So thanks for that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good outcome. And I guess, Helen, I felt that you didn't have as many challenges, right? It sounded like when we
So from a completion data point of view, we just went for a year's worth of data and pulled everything else from our old platform and stored it in a secure GDPR place. But for the year's data, the only issue that we had is like some of our entities had changed email addresses, so it was just like making sure the one that's on our Thrive site matched up with the data in there. But that was like very minor issues for us. I'm quite lucky that I had quite a lot of support from IT and our PSG teams, like how to change the date format. So like you say, when it comes out of the old system, it's not in the date format. And I don't even know what date format it was coming out of the old system, to be fair. That wasn't anything I'd seen before. So converting it to the Thrive data was my only issue, but actually the PSG team sorted that out. And our IT team have said the actual user interface for getting users onto Connect, actually Thrive has been one of our most simplest implementations from an IT point of view as well. So, and like Ashley, like our data now feeds, the data from Thrive now feeds other platforms that we have. So it was a great job done because it's like implementing the other platforms.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. We kind of touched on it about migration a little bit, but it kind of links to data because I imagine, the challenges when migrating from a legacy platform. It'd be good to delve into any of those challenges you guys had and maybe how you overcame them, not just from a data point of view, but maybe it's a content point of view or anything else we talk about migrating from one platform to another.
I think for us, the big challenge was getting people out of the mindset of everything that's on this platform needs to be completed, because everything we had on our old learning platform was compliance based. And we have had a few users sort of contact us and say, look, I've done 120 courses now, but I can't do any more. And it's like, look, you only had to do 4. It's okay. Calm down. But just changing those habits, I think with the migration has been really interesting and eye-opening. And in actual fact, that the migration of data actually went fairly smoothly once we had a few hiccups, but moving the completions records from the old site onto Thrive actually was a really simple process, other than the changes that we wanted to make. So where we had one old e-learning course and now we had sort of 8 micro-learning courses to replace it, trying to match those up and make sure that they worked and synced together was probably the most challenging part of it. So if anyone is going through an implementation of that style, I would say try and move over like for like as much as you can and then update later, because otherwise you can lose a bit of your historical data or it stops making sense.
Yeah. And did you do, when you talk about taking one of your older kind of e-learning courses and breaking it up to micro-learning, did you do that with a lot of courses, or how did you decide which ones you would focus on?
So virtually everything we had on the old platform was compliant. So we did it with more or less all of it, but we broke them down into either where it was things around operations, we broke it down into particular tasks per microlearning course. Where it was something like safe and legal, we broke it down into manual handling and fire safety and data protection, rather than having one big here's everything you need to know to be safe and compliant. But in adding things as we moved across, we then made it really hard for ourselves, because we left modules where people still had to go back in and complete things, even though they'd completed them on the old platform. So, either try and update before you move across, or wait and give yourself a little bit of breathing space there, I would recommend.
It's a good concept though to get into, especially if you're moving to, a learning platform like Thrive, where you can kind of build those experiences in that micro way. Did you get any feedback? Did people notice the difference from going from here's a SCORM course to here's a pathway with some videos and files and
some from users, but mostly from sort of the support center stakeholders who, will occasionally have some issues, and someone will say, look, can we do a refresher on fire safety training as we move into peak? And now we can do a refresher on a 3-minute course rather than a 45-minute course. And that's a huge benefit to us as a business, rather than making someone go through everything.
Sounds good. Helen, what about some of the kind of key challenges with the migration itself?
So our old platform did allow for some user-generated content, but it was in their format, which couldn't be exported out at all. And a lot of it was old user-generated content as well, so still relevant, still has some great parts in it, well, a bit dated, but still relevant. Yeah. So our main problem for us was like, how do we convert this data or these courses, because we can't find the original videos that are in them. The user had left for some of the courses as well. So it was a case of like, what do we want for launch day, which ended up being the compliance training, which was SCORM, the live events. We had all of that stuff on there. We had all the sort of divisional things that we wanted to put on there. And then all of the other training that was on our old platform, because we sunsetted it officially for everyone before we actually lost the platform. We had a couple of months before we initially really lost it. So we were like, we're going to convert everything else. So we converted all of that old SME content. Once we checked that it was still relevant with the SMEs still currently in the business, and we made those into all the articles, video, like just uploading the MP4s, or we used all the different Thrive features so that actually it can be accessible. You can download it. You don't have to go onto this LMS and you can only do it in this one format. It just made it really sort of like interactive, and it broke it down a lot more than sitting here and some of them were like 40-minute pieces of content, because they were from like medical writers, so they were really in-depth pieces of content, which is fine, but we obviously know that bite size is great. If we can do it as short segments and they can just sort of get in there, get what the key pieces of information, then get back out, that's perfect. So it's kind of the way we went afterwards. So we got the main compliance stuff in and done first, and then we sort of moved across the rest afterwards.
Sounds like a good planning. And Ashley,
we had, I think, the same issues as the guys have on the call. One of the additional things that we had was, and we said that the parallel running of 2 learning platforms for a short space of time. So whilst we had launched amongst our existing staff population, we also had our induction and our onboarding learning taking place for our legacy system. And that was purely because we were running slightly behind, if you like, with the transfer of new starters, based on the system that we use to onboard new colleagues into the organisation. So the feeds and the APIs, etc., hadn't quite worked time-wise for us on that one. Separate projects running independently to each other. So we had a wonderful platform that was able to deliver sort of the dashboard to us, could tell us everything for our current staff, but we knew that we had our new staff sat within the legacy platform that we wanted to turn off. We desperately needed to turn that one off. So we were still running the implementation imports into the back end of Thrive for a very short space of time, but everything's gone smoothly now. Touchwood, that's all been and gone. But that was just a bit of a hiccup for a couple of months.
Yeah, and I guess it is that consideration, depending if you're moving from your current platform, how to sunset it, how to make sure completions. But the way that I always suggest when I work with customers is, you can take completions from, the last X amount of years, 2 years, 3 years, and then we can kind of slowly do little imports as we lead up to that go live date. So the people that are done completions yesterday, we can make sure that those 500 completions are in the Thrive platform before they launch it. So no one wants to join a new platform and be told to do the same training which they've just already done, right? So that is a really important factor. So we can help manage that with like we did with you, Ashley, but also other customers too. Cool. And I guess it leads me on to my final question about how Thrive fits within your wider HR or technology stack across the business. So, Helen, it might be good to come to you first, because at the start you said that you use Thrive for a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah, so Thrive's actually our intranet page as well. So we don't have an internal intranet, we use Thrive. So we use it for that, for internal communications. We have it so that if we do any group-wide emails, all the content is linked back to Connect. So Connect is like the one place you go to find everything company learning related. If it's not there, then it's like, okay, let's look at where else can we go? Just onto the big old internet like Google by yourself at that point, and then letting us know where the gaps are. But yeah, so Connect is a great platform for us. We also use it in line with our talent platform, Fuel 50. So Fuel 50 will tell you like what skills and roles, competencies you need for your role, and you can say if you want to level up, and if you want to level up, it can direct you back to Connect, so it'll direct you to those skills and courses that will change your develop your career and stuff like that. So it's a great platform, and sort of it supports because we use Fuel 50 for performance as well. So it's like a circle there, and then we have like our award recognition platform, High Five is what we call it, and we've got challenges on there. So like if you complete a Coursera course or you complete a one of our learning courses, you can earn points, and in that case points means prizes, and then you can go and convert those into like Amazon vouchers and things like that. So the more points you earn, the better. So yeah, we've got a real circle of different platforms for regards to us, but Connect is definitely the center of it. So they all launch from Connect. Everyone goes on to Connect. That's the homepage. So that's definitely sort of our focus.
Nice. Okay. So that's worked really well then, just consolidating a bunch of systems and having one point of access.
Yeah, especially when we initially were looking at having Thrive as a platform, we had Workplace and we had our old LXP, and there were just so many different platforms. And one of the complaints that we have was there's too many platforms, we don't know where to go for what. So Connect really is that hub saying reduce it down to just that one platform in regards to we've got rid of the LXP, the LMS and the Workplace. So we've got one platform for all your internal communications, all your learning is here. If it's not here, then there's something, we're missing something, but you can search for it here and you can find everything. So that really sort of helped people figure out where everything should be.
Yeah, nice. Very good approach. Actually, what about in the college? How have you positioned it?
Yeah, so for ourselves, one of the things that we love about Thrive is the integration with the Microsoft suites. Middlesbrough College in itself, we're a Microsoft Showcase Centre. That's an accolade that we're really proud of. And the fact that we have the integrations with Thrive and we can use the Microsoft suite alongside Thrive seamlessly, talking to one another, is fantastic. We're not where we need to be with it yet, or where we want to be with it. It's still very early stages, and there's so much more we can do. But to know that we have that at our disposal, real driver for us. And what I would say as well is that whilst we haven't necessarily consolidated any platforms by bringing Thrive in, what it has done is it's allowed us to build in efficiencies in our processes and our practices. So our wellbeing campaigns, our EDI agenda, that's all driven now through Thrive, through the likes of campaigns. Whereas in previously we would have to send out either the newsletter, it would drop into somebody's email inbox, etc., get swamped up. That now sits very proudly on the top of our homepage for everybody to see. It's I'm going to say it's challenging how we think of our systems here and our digital stack. We're going through, I think I mentioned, a huge amount of digital transformation. Thrive sits firmly within that digital stack moving forward, and looking at how we can ensure that our platforms that we bring in now from here on, that everything talks, that we've got, we often talk about a single source of truth. and that actually all of our platforms do talk. They're not isolated as they were before, and so Thrive sits firmly within that stack for us.
Perfect. And then Pete, anything else to add? You talked about like the Facebook group earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for us, Thrive was a way to take back a little bit of control from something like a Facebook group, which is really, heavily reliant on the user moderating themselves, because you can't physically be all over a Facebook group with 4,000 members and keep control of it. And I think for us, Thrive was very much the first brick in the new technology platforms that we're going to be launching. So we're changing everything in the business over the next 5 years, from the till systems we use in stores to the stock management systems. How do you train people on those if you haven't got a good LXP behind you? So making sure that we had the LXP in first, got that change through, and then that will support the rest of the technology change in the business.
So you can leverage the platform to support your other changes, right, across the business.
Yeah, and also coincidentally, from my selfish point of view, make sure that they all talk to Thrive and Thrive talks to them, because we're using Thrive to launch them. So we get the benefit of that.
Well, if it's the first thing you get in, then it makes that job a lot easier, doesn't it? So I guess what I'll do then, if anyone's got any questions that are watching, put them in the comments. We've got about 9 minutes left, so we'll definitely get to a few of those. I guess my last question to anyone that wants to answer it is kind of the top tips for success, like anything else that you would tell yourself when you started your implementation. Like, what have you learned? Is there anything else you share? Anyone want to go for it?
I think from my perspective, Ashley, it's once you know that you're ready and you know that you're about to sign, etc., and Thrive is the one for you, get started as soon as humanly possible. Don't think that you have plenty of time, because there is always something that you can be working towards on your implementation plan. Always try and get ahead of that curve as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I was gonna say I second that. Like, plan out your implementation. Literally, like put a chart on there and see like what you're doing each week. So that, is it manageable? Do you need to have extra bodies in place to help you? And like, there's no way you can over communicate with your IT. Like, in that regards to that support and getting that data in, get them involved, speak to them as ASAP.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Buy your IT guys a couple of boxes of chocolates or something before you go into implementation, because you are going to be asking them for favors and last minute late nights or whatever it is to just get things sorted. The other thing is use the staging site. So Thrive's got a really useful staging platform to help you sort of practice your implementation. I don't think we at the work to use that as effectively as we could have. But I'd definitely say use that, because you get to find out all the foibles and pitfalls before you go live.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Practice makes perfect, right? In all those senses.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was going to say, and one thing as well I would say is that there's no such thing as a stupid question, particularly around functionality. Because rest assured, if you're thinking it, somebody else within your team is thinking it. This is a new platform, and yes, I would say it's probably one of the most intuitive platforms that I've come across. But rest assured, there'll be a point where you probably start scratching your head thinking, I know that the team told me this and I just can't recall. So if I click here, and here, it doesn't do what I want it to do. Why not? And it would be something really straightforward, because actually you've overcomplicated things. So yeah, ask lots of questions. That's what the Thrive team are there to help with.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a question that's come in. Any tips to organize existing content for a new launch? Who wants to go for that one?
I think from our point of view, I think it's make sure that you're linking in with your business strategy and the way that you communicate typically with the business. So, if the directors or the senior management normally talk about particular pillars or blocks or whatever it is, make sure your content is arranged in those ways so that people can make the logical decisions that they need to find what they need to find.
Yeah, sounds good. Anything else you to add to that one?
I would just say for us, it was like, what's the main pieces of content? So we had what we wanted for launch day and then what we wanted to do afterwards. So like we knew that launch day was going to be a lot of work anyway. So like, what do we need on there? So for us, it was the compliance-based stuff, because most of the time you have an LXP or an LMS because you have got that compliance need. So that we needed that on there. And then the soft skills things that we absolutely wanted there for launch to sort of showcase this platform. And then it was, how can we then add the other content? So it's just don't necessarily try and get it all on day one. Use your content and add it as your sort of campaign for Thrive as well. So it could be like a week later, you could be like, we've added this content now, or we've added this new button on the explore page. Check it out. Let us know what you think. So don't think that you need to have it all there on day one. Just have stuff there on day one, but it doesn't need to be everything.
I think you're right. I think the kind of the phased approach for any implementation is it's okay. Like it's okay to go on that journey for you to continue to improve it. It doesn't have to be kind of perfect on day one. And that's where we'll work with you. Your CSMs will work with you to always make sure that you're kind of reaching that next target. So yeah, it's definitely okay not to have everything ready for day one, because it is a continual journey, isn't it? Got another question. How do you collaborate with other teams in your organization about what's relevant and needed?
Oh, I can go with this one. So initially, I collaborated with different people around the divisions and teams to discuss what the explore page would look like. So we had all the different buttons, but we wanted to limit how much was on there. So we didn't want to go crazy with buttons. So we would have conversations about, okay, right, we're going to have this button here, and we're going to have this button behind this button. So have you got content behind it? And you'd have one stakeholder that will be fully engaged, and they'll have all of this, and you can showcase that one to other stakeholders to be like, okay, this is what they're kind of doing. Is this what you want to do? Here's your different options. So having those conversations about the explore page really helped us then have conversations about the content they wanted to put behind it. So it really gave them sort of like an insight into how it works, but also the thought process behind it.
So you gave those different teams almost a space on the platform to say, look, this is your space, this is where your content will go, and engaging them from the very start, basically.
Definitely, yeah, that helped us a lot, and it really helped us plan that explore page and that sort of implementation approach.
Nice. Ashley, Pete, anything to add to that? I think we've probably got time for maybe one more question.
Yeah, we had a very similar approach here at the college. We already had predefined populations or forums that we knew we wanted to take advantage of the Thrive platform. So in knowing that they would have their own area set up within the explore sort of page, they could see that they had a tile, and then having the conversations in those working parties, those I'd say their champion groups or their networks, going and showcasing Thrive, what the art of the possible was, getting them to think differently about how they communicate with their audiences, the types of information, the types of content that they wanted to push out, and how individuals would engage with that. So it's been really successful because we've shifted our whole strategy of how we engage with those populations on that particular SME topics, the content. We've flipped the model 360.
Nice.
In fact, yeah, 90, 180. We flipped it somehow.
Yeah, we really struggle to engage people to start with, if I'm honest, because I think, we would talk to the buying team and they say, oh, we don't really have anything for learning. And then sort of trying to work through it with them in terms of what learning is. No, it's not compliance learning, but maybe you've got some fact sheets about products or some marketing material that we can, put out to stores so they understand things, and just changing their opinion of what learning is in the first place. And then working with them on that. And we're now having to say no quite a lot because we're getting sent everything to put on the platform. So that's a decent place to be.
Nice. And then let's try and answer this last question about audiences. Like, any advice on audiences, mainly how to best segment them? But if one person wants to
there are
that
so
one.
many options of how to segment. It's one of the beauties of Thrive, but you can tie yourself in knots with it as well. I mean, we segmented initially by the areas of the business that have different compliance learning needs, and then again by kind of development pathways. But we are continuously adding new audiences and removing them. We've got the core ones there that we use all the time, but we're constantly playing with them. And it's probably one of the best features of Thrive is that you can play with them without impacting people's learning journey too much.
There we go. I think that probably brings us to the end of today's LinkedIn Live. Obviously, thanks everyone for joining. This recording will be made immediately after this closes on LinkedIn. If anyone's got any questions that we didn't get to, obviously feel free to reach out to me, and we can definitely have that conversation. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation, learned something, and now when you go next to your next implementation, you've learned some key tips there from the team here. So yeah, thanks for joining, guys.